Hi, I'm Dr. Chris Matthey. I'm the clinical director here at Authentic Counseling Associates. We provide great therapy and we train great therapists. I've been doing a series of videos on what we call the Big Five: sleep, exercise, diet, mindfulness, and connection. This particular video is an introduction to mindfulness. Let me share my screen. The word mindfulness has been batted around quite a bit these days. It is the act of cultivating acceptance and awareness of what's going on inside of me and outside of me. And such a practice actually substantially can decrease emotional discomfort, anxiety, depression, and increase a sense of peace. Today, I'm going to quickly go over the idea of what is mindfulness, why we should cultivate this thing called mindfulness, and if you wanted to get going on it, what could you do? So first of all, what is it? As I said briefly, the act of maintaining a moment-by-moment awareness of our thoughts, emotions, body sensations, and what's going on around us in our environment. And most importantly, doing this with an openness and a curiosity and acceptance. Most of us may observe what we're doing, but we do it with what I call the critic part of us, where it's judging us, how we're doing it, are we doing it poorly, what should we be doing? Mindfulness helps us cultivate this thing called the observing self, where we build the capacity to simply watch with acceptance and curiosity what's going on inside us and outside of us. In other words, accepting that I'm thinking or feeling a certain way without pushing it away, without chasing it, but simply being aware and accepting of it. Now, if you were to come to me and say you want to run a marathon, we could talk about it, read books on it, we could talk to people who'd run marathons, but eventually you'd have to run the miles. You'd have to build structure. And that's exactly the same thing with building emotional competence, emotional health. You have to put in the time and effort to build that emotional resilience. My son, when he first introduced me to mindfulness, said, "Dad, you got to do your emotional push-ups." And mindfulness is one path for establishing the structure necessary to have a calm and accepting mind. It builds structure. Why should we cultivate this thing called mindfulness? Well, there have been many, many studies published. The APA, the American Psychological Association, shares several pieces of research on their website. But the benefits are amazing. That you can reduce the amount of stress you feel, and by the way, that stress is what kills many of us early. It can help you with memory. It can increase your focus. Have less reactivity to the things going on around you. Be able to be much more flexible in our thinking. And with all these things, have better relationships. More important than just all these nice benefits for our health is our lives change as a result of having deeper capacities for awareness and attention and empathy and kindness in our everyday lives, in our relationships. where do I start? If I wanted to start doing this mindfulness stuff, what do I do? Many people have begun breathing exercises and may have some sort of practice out there. I first learned about mindfulness and was introduced to it by what was called the raisin experiment. I'm going to unshare my screen. And instead of a raisin, I'm going to use an almond. It can be any small piece of food, an M&M, a lemon drop. I'm going to use an almond. I could eat this almond non-mindfully, which I do most of my food. Put it in my mouth, chew it up, swallow it. Take a few seconds. An exercise in mindfulness is to take this piece of food, this almond, first examine it, notice its color and its texture and feel its texture. Then put it in my mouth, taste the salt and the texture of the almond without biting. Then biting it and starting to chew. Burst of flavor, nuttiness, feeling the pieces of the almond as I chew, and then swallowing and experiencing the almond going down my throat. You can imagine that eating an entire meal like this would be quite an interesting proposition. I'm going to share my screen again. Gandhi, the leader of India many years ago, suggested being mindful in any everyday activity, even down to, at the time, when he would shovel manure. But while washing dishes, while vacuuming, gardening, any everyday activity can become a mindful activity simply by practicing bringing one's awareness of thoughts, feelings, and the environment to that activity. These days, there's an app for everything. And apropos of this, there are many, I would venture to say hundreds of apps that can be used for mindfulness. Two that come to mind are Headspace and Calm. These are apps that cost money, I believe about $90 to $100 per year, but they're free to download and use for several days to get a feel for. There are many free apps out there. Breathe is one of them. The important point here is many people like the idea of just hitting a button on their phone and listening, as opposed to having to visualize or do the work themselves. So I encourage you to download any of these and begin examining this process of developing a mindful practice. And when we call it a practice, meaning we do it regularly, we build that structure we talked about. The benefit, like running, the benefit of running doesn't come after 2 or 3 outings running. The benefits accumulate as you run and build structure. Same thing with mindfulness. Give yourself some time. My son invited me when he first introduced mindfulness to me. He said, "Dad, do it for 20 days. And I said, no, I can't meditate. I have too busy. And he said, "Dad, just do it for 20 minutes, do it for 20 days, and then we'll talk." And indeed, that did the trick. By keeping at it, I built structure, and I have been doing it now for many years. So in summary, as in all of the big 5, the Health benefits start right now by slowing down, breathing, becoming aware. You benefit yourself right now in this moment. Also, I encourage any changes in the Big Five to be small ones. Don't think you have to become a guru here, that you have to do this many hours a day. Start small. Maybe give yourself 5 minutes a day to do this. And most importantly is make it a practice. Commit yourself to doing this for many days to get a feel for what it feels like, and make it a habit. I'm going to unshare my screen. Thank you for viewing this small piece on mindfulness. I hope you begin mindfulness. And stay tuned for other videos on mental health and the Big Five. Bye-bye.